We are back for another WWE 2K24 MyRise Concept. This one's all about finishing your story. Here's a concept for a MyRise character from Greenland Cause, and this one's a little bit different because we're actually going back in time and you're going to be starting on OVW, kind of as the forgotten member of that famous class. So, spoiler alert, we're not going to spend too much time in OVW, but we do want to make sure that we interact with some of the key players. You make your OVW debut by going against this young upstart, some kid named Brock Lesnar. I don't know, I think he ended up doing something with UFC or something like that. But this is going to be what brings back squash matches in the games. You're actually going to get absolutely dominated, kind of like, what was it, 2K19, I think, where you had to start out against Braun Strowman. Kind of like that, but instead of Strowman, we're going to be in OVW with this young version of Brock Lesnar. Regardless of how it goes, I think it would be best if the match couldn't be won, but even if so and you do win it, it's going to be treated as if you still got absolutely J-broned out. So maybe just make it where it's unwinnable. I think that'd be a little bit easier. Hopefully, that means squash matches would be back in the full game. I don't want it to be something that's like exclusive to just this one mode or anything like that. And they were a lot of fun. So, 2K, if you're listening, dude, bring them back. Regardless, Brock Lesnar does beat you. He gets you pretty clean. You're able to get a spot on OVW, and then you're going to move into a new feud going against prototype John Cena. I think this would be a nice way to get the prototype in the base game. I'm pretty sure all of these, like Ruthless Aggression era DLC, were like a pre bonus or maybe for the exclusive version, or not exclusive, but special version. I don't know. Regardless, I think it'd be nice for them to still be in the game because, like, I use them as jobbers in my GM and stuff. So maybe I'm just biased and want them to stay in. Either way, Prototype is one that you're actually going to be set to be able to beat. Prototype's about to be on his way out of OVW. You're kind of like the one he's passing the torch to. So it's a good one for you to go through and beat before he heads on up, makes his debut on SmackDown against Kurt Angle. After you beat Prototype and run him out of the company, you got to do the same thing for young Randy Orton. I would like it if they actually made these like fleshed out feuds, but I'm not expecting that. I don't think you need to be in OVW very long. The point is basically to show that you're interacting and have long standing relationships with all of these different big time players in WWE. If they're going to make it a story, young Randy, of course, could just talk about how he's a legacy, how much his dad's important, everything like that. You're still going to end up beating him, so it doesn't really matter what they want to do with the story. And spoiler alert, he might come back in later if you choose. And your last big feud in OVW is against Leviathan, aka Batista, in case you don't know. And this is the one where it's your turn to get sent up to the main roster. So Leviathan's going to really just run through you. This doesn't necessarily have to be a squash match like what the Brock Lesnar one was, but Leviathan will be the most difficult of the three that you really get to face that aren't Brock Lesnar. After a couple of dark matches and performing on some WWE live events, it's time to make your official debut on Raw, and it's going to be answering an open challenge for Carlito in the Intercontinental Championship. I had to use the Raw stage that has the Eddie Guerrero tribute with the lowrider beside it. If that's the timeline and that's when they decide to set it, awesome. If not, just put in a different Raw stage because the Ruthless Aggression era had really cool stages, and the more we get of it, the better and happier I am. I think it'll be good to get this early Intercontinental Championship out of the way on the debut and unlock that young Carlito model since he should be back in the game with his modern version in the LWO. You managed to catch Carlito by surprise. In this model, he hits him with his own backstabber. Cool variation, cool little symbolism. Not important though. You're able to win the Intercontinental Championship, and you're going to get a pretty decent reign with it. I'd like this to be a good way for them to put in some different Ruthless Aggression stars, maybe just bring back some people that aren't typically put in it. It doesn't really matter who they decide to put because I've already got our next major feud all planned out, and it's going to be with Umaga because Umaga is awesome. I've got it at ECW. Again, maybe that's not how the timeline works out. That's up to 2K to figure out. They've got better resources and planning than I do. Regardless, I think Umaga would have been really cool in ECW, so putting him here, letting him have a pretty brutal Extreme Rules, Falls Count Anywhere, some kind of match like that, I think it'd be a good way to shout out to young Umaga. Regardless of the specifics, you will have to defeat Umaga. I got it with a little roll up. Maybe they could put in a little cutscene where you catch him by surprise or something like that. Still make Umaga look strong, and it builds us up for our next big monster, showing that we have to be resourceful because the next person that we're going against is the animal Batista. Batista actually is kind of like a friendly rivalry because I think this would still be around the time that he was a face, but in the match, you are unfortunately going to be injured. Probably off the Batista bomb, kind of like what happened to Cena. And even though Batista feels bad about it, it's not like an intentional thing. I think that'll still keep him as a face. Maybe y'all will be mad at him if that's what happens, but he didn't mean to, so let it go. We take a huge leap in the timeline until you're a guest on the After the Bell podcast with Corey Graves. And it's kind of a discussion on what could have been with your career as well as OVW and that class. Eventually, though, during the conversation, you reveal that thanks to some new surgery techniques, you have been cleared by WWE doctors to return to the ring. You're not sure if you're going to go through with it, but the option is there for you to come back and get the closure that you never got in your original run. And of course, you are coming back. You are a surprise entrant in that year's Royal Rumble. You're returning from injury, and you make sure to bring with you the classic Intercontinental Championship. Something that you never lost, it was taken from you unfairly, so you are back with it to try and reclaim your spot as a true champion. We'll get into some of the details about it, but in the match itself, you actually managed to eliminate Omos single handedly before going on to be eliminated by Gunther. It's a pretty brutal elimination, and after the match, you do have to go and get checked up on by doctors. It's not good news from the doctors. They tell you that the elimination has re aggravated your injury, and they predict that at most you will be able to go for another year of wrestling if you stay with it, instead of taking more time off to go through and get rehab. Your character does decide they're going to stick through it, but this is where we get into our branching decision. You've got two different options. You can confront the past and go against the people that you missed out on when you weren't around thanks to your first initial injury, or you can go and face the future going against some of the top stars of the current WWE. Let's look at the face the future option first, and then we'll go back and look at the other side of the branching option. The Face the Future option first takes you onto a path to try and unify the Intercontinental Championships, meaning at WrestleMania, it's going to be you against Gunther, the man that re aggravated your injury in the Royal Rumble. Despite interference from the other members within Imperium, you are able to get the win and defeat Gunther, putting you on a path to now go and be kind of like a early on mid Carter that's trying to reclaim your spot as a veteran. So let's look at some of the people that you get to face. Grayson Waller, including an appearance on the Grayson Waller effect. Dragon Lee, where you get to learn some more ways of lucha. And Obafemi, who is able to overpower you for most of the match. You do get into a pretty major feud with Austin Theory. It's going to be culminating at SummerSlam, and I think the best way to do a feud like this is probably going to be pretty similar to his feud with Cena. Basically, him saying he doesn't feel respected and wanting to prove himself against a person like you that is a veteran. After defeating Austin Theory, you move into a feud with Solo Sikoa, who, of course, is still with the Bloodline. Thanks to that, he is able to defeat you for the Intercontinental Championship, and it's going to lead into a bigger feud culminating with War Games at Survivor Series as you go against the Bloodline. I've got it here that's with Sammy and Jay. I think that would be fun. I think it would just be neat to play through that. But if y'all have better suggestions, leave it in the comments. Regardless of win or lose, you're going to find yourself back in the Royal Rumble, hoping to make another push for it. Of course, this time you're not going to be Intercontinental Champion, but I'm not re-recording this just without the title on it. You guys are going to be unable to win this match, but it's not going to like have a cutscene to throw you out or anything. You just cannot win, and make sure it's in the coding. Instead, you're going to be a member of the Elimination Chamber match. The winner goes on to face Roman Reigns. You are going to win this match, and hopefully, there's going to be some fun stuff. I would put some stuff to quote unquote build WrestleMania within it, like maybe Logan Paul and LA Knight having a big feud that they're dealing with. I just think that helps with world building. Which means at WrestleMania, you will be facing Roman Reigns, who is backed by the bloodline. This is purposely meant to be a big boss battle, and it's gonna be tricky. Should be a good match, should be a lot of fun, but it is meant to be hard. I'm sure that they could put some fun cutscenes in there. I don't really know what you could do. Maybe some kind of crazy reversal of a spear into some move. I don't know. Regardless, you do get the win and you do become the undisputed champion. In this little timeline, it would be that you're the one that ends the reign. So it feels like a nice big culmination and a good way to finish your story. Let's pause right here and take a look at if you confront the past instead. So if you take on the past instead, you're going to be going down more of a heel route. And it all starts with trying to get revenge on the man that originally injured you, being Batista. After failing to win the Royal Rumble, you'll end up calling him out in the middle of his announcement of going into the Hall of Fame. And you're going to have this match with him, his official last match at WrestleMania. Now the question becomes, can you beat him without getting injured? And that's where you have to really step up and prove yourself, maybe cheating to do so, or maybe doing it clean, because we don't want to go too far down the heel route. After defeating Batista, you'll have some mini feuds with the likes of Kofi Kingston, Drew McIntyre, and eventually AJ Styles, which leads you to going against John Cena at Clash of the Castle. You defeat John and start calling yourself the best out of the class, meaning that OVW original class, which upsets Randy Orton, leading to him challenging you for a match at SummerSlam of that year. There's one last person from that OVW class for you to face, and it's Brock Lesnar at Survivor Series. The match is meant to feel very difficult. I think this probably would be the hardest within this side of the branching storyline, but it is a mandatory win, so you better be ready to take on Brock. And this brings us back to the Royal Rumble. And this time, it's yours to win. It's up to you to go all the way through and win it. We're not holding your hand with any kind of cutscenes or anything like that. Obviously, you're not going to be Intercontinental Champion, but I'm not going through and re-recording it just so we have an entrance without the championship. This puts you on a collision course with the World Heavyweight Champion, CM Punk. And I like to think this could be a good way for them to bring in kind of like a promo system, a pipe bomb system, whatever you want to call it. Basically, the whole feud is based on the idea of you love WWE and wanted to come back. You fought to come back. Meanwhile, CM Punk chose to leave, and he stayed away until he had nothing left but to come back. At WrestleMania, it's time for the World Heavyweight Championship, you versus CM Punk, and once again, it is meant to be a very hard final boss. Once you defeat Punk, you are once again World Heavyweight Champion. This is where our two stories are now going to combine. Commentaries putting over how good you are, how much you've finished your story, everything like that, the redemption for a good buzzword. But in the middle of the celebration, as all of the credits are starting to run, out comes the Judgment Day. You are attacked by Damian Priest and Finn Balor while Rhea Ripley directs the traffic, eventually leading to Damian Priest doing a razor's edge and tossing you off the side of the stage, probably into a light, maybe some tables, I don't know. They carry you back down to the ring, and then Dominic Mysterio's music hits. and they come out with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Dominic hits one final frog splash and pins you, effectively teasing that your career ends with Judgment Day standing over you at the biggest point of your career up to that so far. Despite doctors' warnings, you are going to continue the fight. You refuse to let Judgment Day end your story. You find a couple of allies along the way, and together you take it to them in war games, finishing out your career by finishing off Judgment Day, and hopefully being able to get a little bit of revenge on Dominic Mysterio. And that's it. From this point, they can choose if the story is concluded or if it opens up into like a free world where you're able to keep leveling up. That's up to them. I don't care. All I know is that that's going to be my story pitch. And you guys have any suggestions on ways to improve it or other storylines that you would like to see? Leave it down in the comments below. Big shout out to CNG86 for this awesome cover that they made. I really And that's it. Your character has finished their story. If 2K wants, they can make it where it's got some additional post game stuff, just basically turning it into a season mode, or that can be it. I would probably go with the season mode option, but hey, they don't pay me to make those decisions. Big shout out to CNG86 for this awesome cover. I really think this is going to be pretty close to what the cover looks like based on what 2K's been teasing. But if you have any other ideas for what y'all think should be in the MyRise storyline, leave them down in the comments. We just might make a full pitch based on it.